Well, here to tell us more is Iridium's Vice President for Europe, the Middle East, Africa and Russia, and that's Dan Mercer, and he's in our London studios. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Mercer, for coming in. First of all, just tell us more about Iridium, particularly the upcoming satellite launch.
Yeah, well, as you saw on the graphic there, we operate a global network that provides 100% coverage of the planet for communications. That's voice or data. If you take ground-based terrestrial wireless networks, the planet only has about 10 to 15% coverage. So you could see there very clearly from our 66 satellites, we lay down beams that allow devices from aircraft, from ships, from containers to connect onto the network and enhance their operations and essentially provide much more safe operations for the people operating them.
Many people were rather surprised to learn of the previous limitations of radar coverage when the Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 disappeared in 2014.
Yeah, and in fact, on the new constellation that we will be completing, as you mentioned, on the 30th of December, we are flying a hosted payload, which allows the receipt of tracking information from the world's airlines. So those days of MH370, where aircraft simply disappear, are soon to be long gone. And in fact, we've now, through Aireon, our joint venture company, have signed contracts around the world, including in Africa, South Africa, and other African nations are now buying that data in order to ensure safe passage and more accurate and safe air traffic management throughout the region. So those days will soon be gone.
And I was just going to say that in addition to providing voice communications in previously unconnected areas, I mean, the greater satellite coverage can accelerate development of the internet. And of course, the next logical question, which I think you touched on briefly, is what about applications in Africa, particularly in areas such as security?
Yeah, so in Africa specifically, where there's very limited coverage, there are still many applications that need that connectivity. For example, here in London, Zoological Society London have built a product called Instant Detect, which is a camera-based product connected to our satellite network that is triggered. Camera images are triggered via different sensors, by animal movement, by metal sensors, by sound sensors that can then take images of those animals in herds, potentially under attack, and alert the local ranger force, who themselves can then deploy in an appropriate manner. In fact, the rangers themselves, we've had tests with peace parks, with Africa parks up in Kenya, southern Tanzanian elephant project, testing and using our satellite communications handsets for voice in order to stay connected and coordinate a response more appropriately.
And talking about Iridium's technology, which seems to be quite sophisticated and rather vast there, I mean, would it also assist a still maturing African aviation industry? Because that's an area where there's quite a bit of concern.
Yeah, so we're very lucky to have nearly 400 partners around the world that we allow to be creative in their own right and deliver products that are unique and specialized into markets such as light aviation, general aviation. If I quote, for example, a customer, one of our partners rather, called Spider Tracks, there are aircraft flying around Africa that are sending messages or tracking positions back to their operation headquarters, anything from every 30 seconds to every few minutes. They can do two-way messaging. They can report any accidents, any change, rate of changes that affecting the flight. They could get weather updates. So this is something that, the Internet of Things, connecting aircraft, connecting trains, connecting shipping containers, connecting trucks, all of these have a place specifically in Africa to keep those cargoes safe and to enhance operational efficiency overall.
And I mean, for a minute there, Mr. Mercer, I mean, it sounded like your company was on the brink of collapse. I mean, you seem to have managed to claw back, and this launch represents what someone said was like a phoenix-like rise for your company.
Well, yeah, of course, Iridium in this first instance did actually go bankrupt in the early 2000, and since then we have built the company back up to a very successful and indeed profitable business, and we've been able to afford to invest in replacing that initial constellation with Iridium NEXT. That's a $3 billion investment. On the 30th of December, we launch rocket number 8 on SpaceX, the Falcon 9, Elon Musk's launch platform, and we put our final 10 satellites into space, completing Iridium NEXT, bringing additional capacity, new services, faster speed data connection, and that'll be in service, essentially a public utility from space for the next 15 years. So it is quite some story, yeah. Over the 30-year overnight success story.
Well, that's the sort of story we like to hear here on Arise News. Dan Mercer, thank you very much indeed. Dan Mercer, of course, the Iridium's Vice President for Europe, the Middle East, Africa and Russia. And you're watching Arise News Hour. Plenty more still ahead. Stay with us.